The casing was still warm when we pulled it out of the drift. Not from the star. We were too far from Kepler's reach for that. Warm from the inside. I registered it on the second pass of the scanner and thought the sensor was damaged. Because a decommissioned bioweapon research core does not generate internal heat 11 years after it has been stripped, sealed, and jettisoned into your own system's outer belt as a diplomatic gesture. As an insult, more precisely. The Tessivar compact had transmitted the coordinates with a line that translated roughly as, "We have returned your property." They had included a second line. It translated as, "This is all it was worth." I noted the temperature. I noted it again 6 minutes later, higher by 2 degrees. Then I called Commander Ressa Okafor on the reclaimant's bridge, and I told her we had a problem that was not going to wait for the debrief. She came down to the recovery bay herself. She stood at the containment rail and looked at the casing through the glass. 3 meters of brushed verinium alloy, Terran manufacture stamps still legible along the seam, and she did not say anything for a long time. When she finally spoke, she did not ask me if I was certain. She knew I was certain. What she said was, "How long?" I told her I did not know. That was the honest answer. Whatever was growing inside had been doing so for 11 years in the dark, in vacuum, with no substrate we had provided it. It had found its own. That was the part I kept coming back to. As I prepped the secondary containment unit, we had built a system intended to be inert. The Tessivar had taken it, examined it, decided it posed no threat to them, and thrown it back. In doing so, they had given it 11 years of undisturbed time. They had, in their confidence, incubated it. Okafor called fleet operations within the hour. I was not in that conversation. Tricked. I learned its contents the same way the rest of the reclaimant's engineering crew did. Through the orders that followed, we were to maintain communications blackout. We were to transfer the casing and all scanner logs to Outpost Mirren under sealed protocol. We were to file no incident report through standard channels. I had been building Starship drive systems for 19 years. I had never been told to file nothing. At Mirren, the scientists worked fast. I was brought in because I had the scanner logs and because I had been the one to catch the temperature variance. 3 weeks, I watched them through the armbands, through the laminate wall while I answered questions, and filled out forms, and tried to sleep in a bunk that smelled like recycled air and Mirren's particular brand of institutional coffee. What they found was this: the core's sealed matrix, which we had designed to be inert upon decommissioning, had encountered a Tessivar mineral compound during transport or storage. The compound had not neutralized the matrix. It had fed it. Slowly, over 11 years, the matrix had reorganized itself around the new substrate. What came back to us was not what we had sent. It was considerably more than what we had sent. Watched the lead researcher brief the Admiral via secure line. I watched the Admiral's face through the glass. I understood then that whatever happened next had already been done inside at a level above everything in that room, including the Admiral. The decision had been made the moment the Tessivar transmitted those coordinates. The moment they wrote, "This is all it was worth." The Iron Catechism was assembled over 4 months in the outer dry dock at Callaway Station. 280 ships. I was there for the final 6 weeks, reassigned to systems integration on the lead dreadnought, the Meridian Claws, which is the only reason I can tell you what I am telling you now. I watched those ships come in from every corner of the fleet, destroyers and heavy carriers and long-range strike frigates, and 3 Cathedral-class dreadnoughts that had to be escorted in pairs because nothing else in the dry dock had enough clearance to berth beside them. I watched the armament teams work 20-hour shifts in the sunlight that cut through the dry dock's upper gantries. I watched the engineers from Mirren install the delivery system on the Meridian Claws herself, in a sealed bay that the rest of the crew was not permitted to enter. I was permitted. I had the clearance because I had the history. It did not look like a weapon. It looked like a piece of very precise engineering, which in a way it was. No ultimate was sent to the Tessivar compact. There are people who have since argued that one should have been, that we should have told them what we had found, what we had built from what they had returned to us, and given them the chance to respond. I have heard this argument many times. I do not have a clean answer to it. What I know is that the Tessivar Compact had been given 11 years to wonder whether that core was dangerous. They had examined it and decided it was not. They had transmitted their conclusion in 2 lines and included a translation so there would be no misunderstanding. They had been confident. That confidence was the message. We sent one back. The Iron Catechism translated into Tessivar space at 061 hours, local fleet time. 280 ships in column formation, the meridian clause at the point. I was at my station in engineering. I could see nothing of what was outside, only the readouts, power draw, thermal load, the delivery system's diagnostic running green across every panel. What I heard was Okafor's voice on the ship-wide channel, level and unhurried, reading the formal record. The date, the coordinates, the offense on record. 1 decommissioned bioweapon research core, Terran origin, returned to human space with contempt, bearing active biological matrix after 11 years of Tessivar custody. And the response. She read it as a list. That was the thing I remember most. Than a speech, a list. Each item stated once, in order, without flourish. The fleet composition, the armament type, the target coordinates, the delivery window, the projected outcome. The Tessivar Traffic Control Station broadcast 4 times in 3 minutes. The first 2 were challenges. The third was an identification request. The fourth was something that did not translate well. The Tessivar have a linguistic structure for a category of statement that has no direct human equivalent, somewhere between a warning and a revelation, between we did not know and we understand now. The linguist on the Meridian clause said the closest rendering was, "We see what this is." She said it in a quiet voice, and then she turned back to her panel. The delivery window was 6 minutes. The Iron Catechism did not fire its weapons. It had not needed to come armed for that. What it delivered was 1 sealed verenium casing, Tessivar mineral compound included as a courtesy, with the matrix inside functioning exactly as the Mirren scientists had prepared it to function. We had spent 4 months ensuring it would perform with precision. It did. I filed the log entry at 0744 hours. Delivery confirmed. All systems nominal, 0 fleet casualties. We translated back without waiting. There was enough left to observe that required observation. What happened on Tessivar Prime over the following days is documented elsewhere, in reports I do not have clearance to read in full. I know the broad outline. The Tessivar Compact formally dissolved its governing council within 60 days. The client states under their authority began separate contact with Earth's diplomatic corps within 90. None of them used the Compact's standard transmission protocols. None of them referenced the Compact by name. They started fresh, told us everything we needed to know about how they assessed what remained of the Compact standing. 4. Stood me down from the Meridian clause at Callaway Station when we returned. I shook her hand and she held it a moment longer than the handshake required. Not warmly, but with a weight I understood. We had both watched that casing come out of the drift warm. We had both known at that moment that something irrevocable had already begun, that the Tessivar had started a clock they did not know was running, and that our only remaining task was to be ready when it finished. I transferred back to standard engineering rotation 2 weeks later. I do not talk about the Mirren assignment in casual company. There is not much to say that the record does not already contain, and the record is classified. What I will say is this: we did not build that system to be returned to us. We did not design the matrix to grow in the dark. We did not plan for the mineral compound, or the 11-year incubation, or the Tessivar's precise, confident contempt. None of that was our intention, but we were ready when it became ours to answer. That is the part that matters. When the Tessivar threw it back and called it worthless, we looked at what they had given us, and we understood what it now was. And then we spent 4 months making certain that when we returned it, they would understand the same. They did.